Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Nice. That's so gentle. That's so nice. It's so calm. You know what that is? That's silence. It's so golden.
So golden. It is. It is so very golden. And wow, Dan, we are just like in sync with the vibe of the first sermon from the crescendo. Well, it's not the crescendo, it's just crescendo of chaos. But
Yes.
yeah, we're grooving. I don't have a falsetto like the good Dr. Gregory Boyd does, but I'm all about the silence. I think it's a good thing. I'm a proponent of silence.
That's right.
Much
Yes.
noise.
I wasn't until he started singing. Now I am. So yes.
And now you're like, yes, silence. Go, man, go. Oh, my goodness. How are you on this glorious Monday?
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't say that. It's Tuesday. It's happy.
Okay. All right. We are recording on Monday this week because of extenuating circumstances. So yes, it is cloudy and stormy, and but you know that's the good thing about being busy and having things that you're doing, because yeah, it's a good day to be inside working on stuff.
Amen to
great.
that.
Yeah.
Amen to that. If you guys see Dan get swept away in a gust of wind, just know that I am on it. I will go and rescue him and Barbara if a tornado comes through. We
Yes.
are on a bit of a watch, a bit of an alert.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the radios are making all those ee-oh noises, and it's like you'd think it's like 2025. You'd think there'd be better noises that you could make than those
You'd think.
ear-piercing things. But it works. It's like I'm paying attention. So
It gets your attention.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say Happy Muse Day to everyone, and maybe I should stay silent because well, holy buckets, I gaffed that one big time. But Happy Muse Day, everyone! We are so glad that you're here. He's Dan Kent. I'm Shawna Boren, and we started a new sub-series back in our old trusty friend Revelation. We're back, baby.
Yes.
And I love the title of this sub-series, Crescendo of Chaos. I think it's great. I love, the wordplay there, but also it seems, again, quite timely. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And so Greg kicked us off with Silence is Golden. And we made it through an entire one verse of Revelation chapter
Yes.
8. So we are just rolling.
Yeah.
Rolling, baby.
Totally. Yeah, I loved it. I feel happy to be back in Revelation. So I'm excited to be back in, and it was just this one verse. It was 8:1, and it's a weird layout of the text because this chapter we start the next cycle of judgments. We start with the sirens, or the kind of the alarms, the trumpets, and yet this first part of the chapter is still from the previous cycle. So it's a little strange. It's also a really strange verse, and there is a lot of debate about what this verse means. But I remember the first time I read it, I was just so struck by it because it literally, it says, when the seventh seal was opened, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. It was about a half an hour,
Yeah.
give or take. Might have been 45 minutes. Might have been an hour, somewhere in there, and it's just, I just thought that was so funny that because, especially with a book that's so mathematically precise, where there's 7 of this and 3 of that, and you have to get the numbers right, but the silence will be about a half an hour, this is this or that. So that is the verse that Greg is going with. And, so we have been away from Revelation for a while, so he starts off with this big summary of where we've been and kind of lands us where we're at right now. And he talks about, whenever you're looking at Revelation, always when you're looking at Revelation, you should be thinking about how does this relate to the Old Testament? Because John is doing such a genius, masterful job of tying all the entire scope of Scripture and the Christian and Jewish history into this book, into where it is all going. And so when you are looking at the text, you have to be looking for those allusions in the Old Testament, especially when it's a strange verse like this one, the silence for about a half an hour. And there are a lot of allusions to silence in the Old Testament. And Greg, and I think he's right, and so does Tongstead and a couple other writers, he kind of points back to Isaiah 52, verses 13 to 15. And it's such a brilliant verse. And I just want to read it, even though this is going beyond the normal summary, but it's something I want to keep chewing on. So I'm going to just read it one more time. But it says this. This is part of the prophecy of the Messiah, and it says, "See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up highly and exalted. Just as there are many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So he will sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand." And it's just such a bizarre, mixed kind of prophecy of what the Messiah will be like. It not only will the Messiah be exalted, well, yeah, that makes sense. He's the Messiah. Of course he's going to be exalted, but marred beyond all human recognition and disfigured so badly that people are taken aback and they can't help but just shut their mouths when they see him. What a strange, strange prophecy. And yet that is exactly what we find with Jesus and the Lamb. And the peculiarity of the prophecy and the just perfect fulfillment of it, it rings of veracity and truth. And I just think it's so powerful. And what's interesting is the kings will shut their mouths. It says the kings are the bad guys in the story in Revelation. They're the ones who are the primary power nodes, the agents of Satan. And they are primary deceived people who are doing the work of the principalities of powers here on the earth. And they are the conduit through which the beast is violent toward God's people and toward God's creation. And so what happens is that this is all leading to consequences. And these are consequences that God just allows because he gives this free will. And there is this authentic kind of autonomy that his creation has. And he is calling us into the light. He's calling us into this good way of living, but we get deceived. And that ends up with consequences, and these cycles of judgment are those consequences. And now it's all going to end up with this happy ending, and God is going to redeem it all, including the primary conduits of all of this violence and evil, and that is the kings. Even they will be escorted into God's kingdom, but in the process they are deceived, and they are the pawns of this game. And when they see the Lamb, when they see the reality of the situation, they see things that they were not aware of. They see things, they understand things that they had not heard. They were so deceived by the principalities and powers, they were incompatible with the light. They were incompatible with the truth. And now they see this Lamb, and all they can do is just shut their mouths because they are spiritual dead ends. They have just come to nothing, and there is nothing to say. And it's just an amazing, amazing verse. And so what a great verse to kick the series off with. Greg then talks about 3 points that we can kind of draw from this. The first one is that, what God will do for the people who experience God and see God for who God is, it will blow our minds. And so Greg invites us to ask God to blow our minds, to show us his greatness. And he shares Ephesians 1:17-19, where Paul invites us to ask for a spirit of wisdom and eyes of the heart to know God better. And so we have that, not only as individuals, but as a corporate whole. The second kind of point that he made is to seek silence and to listen to God in silence, because we're not going to find God in the noise. And there's something about listening for God and getting to know God's voice. And Jesus even says, "My sheep will know me from my voice." And then the third kind of takeaway is we have to know when to shut up. Words are not meaningless. Words matter. They're important, and we have to be really careful with our words. And James, 3 tells us that, look how small the tongue is, and yet it takes down kingdoms. It destroys families. It wrecks relationships, and we have to be careful with it. In Matthew 12, Jesus warns his disciples that we will have to give an account for all of our empty words, all of our ungodly words. We're going to have to give an account for that. And that is a stern and I think important kind of warning that our Lord is giving us. And so we should take heed of that. I worry about myself, and I can't help but think of, how many of how I have talked about people or talked to people, and it's easy to look at social media and say, yeah, these people need to hear this, but we also have to say, okay, maybe I need to hear this too. So I'm really glad that Greg included that as well. So that is my summary, and I tell you, it's a great kickoff to the series. What did you think of Greg's sermon?
I agree, Dan. I thought it was a great kickoff to the series. And thank you for your summary. It's interesting because we hear the sermons quite a few times between, all the things. But I always get something different from your summaries, which I'm very thankful for. And then I always get something a little different also from the sermon resources that go along that we find online. So it's always interesting, just like, yeah. And again, one little verse, but there's just so much there. Honestly, I don't know that there would have been space or time for him to have gone any further into chapter 8, because from this one verse, there is so much richness here. I thought it was an excellent start to the series. And I really love, first of all, I was appreciative of just the panoramic view of where we've been up until now. The way my brain works, like once it's done, I don't hold stuff. It's gone. It's so it was like, oh, that's right. So that was helpful, just to kind of get that recap, and it just kind of situates you into, okay, this is what's happening at this point, and it's again very unexpected, which I feel like happens quite a bit in Revelation. There's an assumption that things are going to go one way, and then it's just very unexpected. I really appreciated the 3 points at the end, and how we can apply some of this into our spiritual disciplines. I think that was great. And I wrote down some. Oh, yeah. You in your sermon, you were talking about how you were referencing that verse in Isaiah and bringing that back to Revelation, and how like even these kings that are the bad guys, they are going to wake up. They're going to come out of their deception, and which is glorious and good. And I just think to myself, man, one of the things I truly despise personally in life is I don't like being deceived. I don't like getting snowed over. I don't like thinking something is one way and it's different. Like I don't like that. It really bothers me. And so this for me was a really good reminder that like that's the enemy at work. He's always looking to deceive and to thwart and to make something appear as it's not. And so for me, this was just like a really good like wake up to that. And ways in which we can wake up to that is to have that connection, to be odd, by God, not to let it get mundane and just like, meh, like, man, when is the last time I was truly in awe of something that I know that God has said or done or way that he's shown up? That was just a good reminder for me. And then to listen in silence. Like silence is golden. And how many times do I speak when I could just be listening? How many times do I just forge ahead thinking I know when I need to take a moment to listen? Because God's presence is always there and he is speaking to us. And then, yeah, knowing when to be quiet, I think is a gift in and of itself. So I'm very pleased with the start to the series. I think it's going to be really good, and I'm thankful for the conviction, but also the encouragement. Because I feel like, yeah, I'll just say that I'm excited for the conviction and I'm encouraged by it all too.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good thoughts. One other part that Greg has kind of referred to this before, but it is both the Isaiah passage. I keep chewing on because the passage says this. Let me see where to go. There it is. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand. What I like about that is so many of I mean, there's so many angles to talk about here, but like one of the things that I like about this, and it's just an example of like how this passage requires more chewing. You can't just read it and move on with your day. It has more there. It has a lot there. One of the things that encourages me and kind of gives me hope in like our pursuit of God is that God has revealed himself and God is revealing himself. The kings had not heard these things. The kings, it says, they were not told these things. We're told over 100 times to seek God. And we're told that light has come into the world and to turn toward that light. These people hadn't heard. They hadn't seen any of this. And that means that they weren't looking. They weren't looking. They were not putting themselves in a position where they could find God. They were most likely pursuing power. They were ascending. They were going down what the Bible calls the path of darkness or the path of unrighteousness or the path of death or whatever it is. It's called multiple things. And it just shows how important it is, even though they eventually will know. They will see and they will just shut their mouths because they will see things that are just so out of their rubric that all they can do is shut their mouths. But we're told that we can hear these things and we can see these things, and so I think that is just profound. So it's not like so many of the things about God. You know, when people don't understand something about God, one of the things that they say is God is infinite and we are finite, so that's why we can't understand. This passage seems to suggest, no, God is revealing himself, which means that we can understand. Now, we might not have heard the right thing yet, and we might not yet have seen the right thing, but our understanding isn't, or our lack of understanding isn't because we're incompetent or finite or small or sinful or anything like that. It just means that maybe we haven't sought God enough, or maybe we haven't positioned ourselves in a place where we can see the important things and hear the important things that we need to see and hear. So I love that. And and that was all really just a thought pattern that I wasn't planning on going down because I wanted to talk about another thing. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that back up because, again, I just feel like there was so much fertile soil in this opening sermon. And I have been asking myself the question, like, man, first of all, we are people that have been saved by grace. I'm well aware, and we're all doing hopefully the best that we can to become the image bearers that we are meant to be. And yet, I know that I'm not always seeking. I'm not always looking. I'm busy. It's noisy. Right. There are other things that are distracting. And rather than think myself better than these kings that were, the culprits, that were the bad guys. I need to maybe recognize moments when I am in that vein, like when, and not to like beat myself up, but just to be like, wake up to, hey, I'm not always seeking and looking and recognizing, because I do get busy or I do get distracted or it is so noisy. And so that's why I love that this passage from Revelation is so apropos and so relevant to 2025 here and now. And I'm getting excited about it all over again, obviously.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Well, and there's one other passage that Greg referred to, and this is the one that I was going to talk about, but then I totally derailed myself. But he's referred to this before, and there's another one where I just feel like, man, I need to really soak in that for a while. But he talks about Proverbs 20:27, where it says that we're told that our spirit is God's lamp inside of us, and that is just how profound and deep and radical that is for something that was written thousands of years ago. That's by itself is just amazing. But also, it's another one of those things that I think speaks to the veracity of something special has been revealed in this book, and because the profundity of it is just off the charts. It's so different than anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, and then to that point, I will say that I was really appreciative that Greg reminded us that most times, not necessarily all the time, but most times, that is going to sound like your own voice. It's going to sound like your own thoughts. And so not to discount that and just assume, that was just a weird thing. And again, sorry, but again, I just feel like, man, what this has caused me to do is just to take a moment to reflect, because when I've done that, just in the last, let's just say 24 hours, I'm kind of remembering there have been some points, let's just say in the last month, where I've just kind of felt or sensed or thought I heard, but then I can easily just go, later, or I got to do this, or this is what's on my to-do list. And so again, I just feel like we have this open invitation to be tapped in to the most glorious, most amazing, most powerful God ever. And he's not hiding from us, but he's also not going to chase us down and beat us over the head. And I think everyone thinks that it's all going to be like, a Saul Paul moment, like, where you get knocked down and that could happen, but usually not. Like, usually it's just that still small voice, that nudging, that revelation in your spirit, and that we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That is correct.
All right. Hey, you did not know I was going to do this, so forgive me, and I get it if you're not fully prepared. But I thought, like I said, Greg did a great job of like kind of giving us a panoramic view of where we've been. Can you just give us a little foretaste, like for those who don't read ahead, who have no idea what chapters 8 and 9 are about to bring us, and don't give all the goods away, Dan Kent, but can you just kind of give us a little overview of kind of the journey that we are about to embark upon?
Yeah, I don't feel like super confident in my ability to do that, just because what I thought the book of Revelation was up to this point is totally different than what I found. And so that's where, because I haven't studied the rest of it at the level that I've studied where we're at so far, I feel insecure about it. But I will say this, we are going to be moving faster for the next few chapters, just because, like Greg said, these are three different aspects of the same judgment, and so there is some overlap, and so I think we are going to be moving in bigger chunks, and then it gets really weird. You think it's been weird so far. We're not even close to the weirdness yet. It gets really weird, like 11, 12, all the way up to 19, but there's also just some really important stuff there, and then everything sort of comes together up into chapter 21 and toward the end of the book. And so I don't know what else to say that doesn't give anything away, but that's kind of where we're going at.
Let me help you because this is, see, you go further than I asked for, Dan. And that's very, see, that's the kind of student you were. You went- Little teacher's pet there. No, okay, so let's pull it back. Crescendo of chaos, right?
Hmm.
What do we have to look forward to in
Oh,
Crescendo of
yeah.
chaos?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Well, I've been really focusing on this next week, which is
Yes, you
that
have.
with the crescendo of chaos, we have these trumpets, and I'm going to be looking at the trumpets, which is interesting because I have shared in other sermons that I love jazz. I do not like horns, and
I know.
I think.
I know. I
I
thought about that.
Right. And I think, good reason now because horns, as we will see, they represent the coming of, well, not necessarily. Okay, let me back up on that. In this case, they represent God's judgment, but a lot of times in the Old Testament, they represented God's approach, like God is coming
Mhm.
to make covenant, to be with his people, to send, say an important message, and also to spank the Israelites and to, do stuff like that as well. So we'll have to see. I guess I don't know what my opinion is yet on it, but I will by this Sunday.
Well, that's a good thing. Also, I think it just speaks to me, to our team. Like we have a plan. We kind of know a direction, but we also kind of hold some of that loosely in that we leave space for things to bubble up.
Hmm.
And for us to hover on certain things. So my
Yeah.
encouragement to you guys is if you would like, just read through chapters 8 and 9 and then just come along on the journey with us. Like I said, we have a plan. We have a bit of a structure, but we also are always listening.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And trying to see kind of what may bubble up, what do we need to spend some time on. And ultimately, this is the thing that I love is that through the chaos, our call, and I feel like we've said this so many times, our call remains the same. And so I think, again, this subseries will just help affirm and encourage and, yeah, just enable us
Yeah.
to live in that reality.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. And I think that is it's a good way of approaching first of all, if you are a pastor, and we do have other pastors who watch the MuseCast and also the sermons, and I just think that that is a good way to prepare for a series and a message is to hold it loosely and to kind of work with a direction and keep listening for God's guidance and keep listening for what do the people in the congregation need? What do the people in the world need right now? Where is the enemy, creating vulnerabilities and having that loosely is for as long as possible until you deliver it, I think is really important. There was something else I was going to say about that too, but I think I might have lost it. Yeah, I think I lost it, but I think that's important.
Well, I'm sorry you lost it. And if it comes back to you, just
All
jump on
right.
in there.
All right.
Because if not, Dan can. Because we didn't
Yes.
get, again, first sermon in the series, usually not a ton of questions. They usually start to roll
Yeah.
in subsequent weeks. But so if it hasn't come back to you yet, we're going to groove on
Woohoo.
down the nugget time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. It is nugget time. Very nice nugget
Yes.
dance, sir.
Thank you.
I think it's your turn to nugget first.
All right, sounds good. I'll just also say that I don't know if you noticed that that nugget dance had a little bit of some curvature to it, and that was
It
the secret.
did.
Yeah, so a lot of
Okay.
times I'm just doing the up and
It's
down.
just that.
This time I had a little bit more like this, which is hard to do in a chair, but it's something I'm working on. So we'll
Are
see how it
you
goes.
just trying to make Greg feel bad that he's so
Yeah.
stiff right now?
Poor
But you're
Greg.
like, no, I got it.
No,
I
no,
can do it.
you know how I
Terrible for
respond to
him.
stuff like that. Yeah, because I've had people in my family who have different disabilities and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
and in my conversations and in my experience and my relationships with people like that, I just feel like I feel bad, of course, that they're in that situation, but I also feel like I need to be grateful for what I have while I have it because I could lose it any time at any moment. And
At
so yeah, we
any
gotta
moment.
gotta be
Yeah.
grateful and enjoy it while we got it.
Amen.
My nugget this week is something that I was just thinking about. It's really hard. Life is hard. And it's just there's so much violence and there's so much exploitation and just
Mhm.
people are crushed under the wheels of this horrible machine. And it's baffling how much God allows. And it can be hard. And the I guess what I want to say is Revelation really is sort of what's beautiful about it and what's really encouraging to me about it is it doesn't sugarcoat any of that. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. It doesn't pretend like things aren't as bad as they seem. No, it is that bad. And the good news of the Bible isn't that things aren't so bad. They are bad. The good
Yeah.
news of the Bible is that things are going to be made right.
Hmm.
And just how vividly the scriptures understand the woe gives me comfort in trusting what the Bible says about the joy. And and so that's, I guess, my nugget is just that thought that I have been keeping in my heart and in my mind as I'm living in this world that is so ungodly, and as I study this scripture, which can be very vivid, and without understanding that joy and those promises, it can also be very dark. And so just remember to hold on to that joy and those promises. That is my
Mm.
nugget.
That was beautiful, Dan. And I'm very poignant. And I'm a little taken aback because I had two things written down that were potential nugget fodder. And the first one was that God will ultimately redeem all. And that's just something that I'm feeling like we need to remember. Just remember, God will ultimately redeem all. He will, but it hasn't happened yet. And we're living in that not yet. And that can be hard. And you are so right. That revelation is just, it's honest about that. And then the second thing I wrote, which I feel like again ties to your nugget, is I wrote down, Lord, open my eyes and my ears, because I really want to hear and I want to see where God is and how God is at work in the midst of the things that are not yet redeemed, in the midst of the deception. And I am so angry that so many people, creation, just all of the deception that we're just cloaked under. I get so mad because I feel like if ultimate truth were fully revealed and people were leaning into that, just how much better things will be. But then I have to remind myself that ultimately that is what will happen. He will redeem all. Truth will be revealed. Deception will fall away. The lies will cater, and that's our hope. That's what we're headed toward. And so, in the meantime, when things are chaotic, when you're seeing the destruction and you're seeing the death and the decay, and you're seeing, the deception, know that we are striving toward something that is so much more hopeful, and that's a part of how we can experience a taste of that here and now in the midst of all the ugliness, is by continuing to strive toward. And so when Greg challenged us with how we use our words and our tongue, I just really held on to that. How can we use our words to encourage, to bless, to lift up, to love, instead of all the other ickiness that we seem to hear and experience from people? So not as succinct as your
Mm,
nugget, but
that's awesome.
anyway, that's
That's
my nugget.
awesome. That's great. That's
All
awesome.
right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and just for being a part and going on this journey with us. More to come, and it's going to be good. So please continue to tune in and send in those questions and comments. Dan is going to show you, boom, right there,
Yep.
MuseCast at whchurch.org. We appreciate you guys, and we're looking forward to
That's right.
more God has to say in Crescendo of Chaos.
That's right. And also go Timberwolves.
Ah!
All right.
Fine. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, you guys.